Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So this winter retreat, taking the opportunity to kind of reconnect with our meditation practice, in particular, trying to turn to the protective meditations, Buddhanussati, metta bhavana, cultivation of loving kindness, and the contemplation of the body, asubha, unattractive nature of the body, and contemplation of death. And these are really supportive practices for keeping our meditation on track, and providing good anchor for the meditation. And this evening I thought I would circle back to Buddhanussati, Recollection of the Buddha, because it's I think quite primary to the whole endeavor of practicing Buddhism. Recollecting the Buddha and having a sense of appreciation for the primacy of the role that the Buddha plays in our own aspiration for understanding and for wisdom. And of course, the traditional basis for recollection of the Buddha has always been the recollection of the awakening of the Buddha. A sort of faith in the awakening of the Tathagata, Tathagata Bodhisattva. But it's also, of course, it has a huge range of applications and perspectives and angles to approach it from. But one of the things that came up over this past, couple of weeks, I was listening to readings of suttas and there's a set of suttas that where the Buddha is teaching his son Rahula, and I thought, or I was struck by the element of in reflecting on the Buddha, just this sense of his being a human being, and it's so easy sometimes to, when somebody's 2,500 years old and is a fully awakened arahant bringing the Buddhism into the world, it's easy for him to be mythologized and for it to become quite distant, and of course it is distant in time, but that's the beauty of the suttas, the teachings, that it's preserving these teachings, instructions that the Buddha gave to his assembly, and this in particular of him teaching his own son. And so there was it felt like a very human quality of here is the Buddha dealing with the first. There isn't a huge amount of say detail in any of the, especially in terms of a biographical nature, even about the Buddha himself. There's not a huge amount, but and then certainly because the nature of the discourses and the Pali Canon is not. It isn't about say biographies or it's a record of how the Buddha laid out his Dhamma Vinaya, his teaching, his dispensation, and his training. But they've been hidden within this as nuggets, I feel. And the first one is a discourse of the Buddha teaching his son when his son was still a young novice, and in the record of the in the canon, Rahula was ordained as a novice when he was about 7 years old, and so that this teaching that the Buddha is giving is giving instruction to his son when he's about 7, 8, maybe 9, so quite young, and of course there's a certain how do you here he is, he's a fully awakened Buddha, how do you teach little kids, and but then the Buddha coming up with quite illustrative similes and images, and using things on hand so that the Rahula comes and sits down with the Buddha. The Buddha has come and he's washed his feet, and then he sat down and he takes the dipper with has a little bit of water left in it, and then using that as a prop. There's this dipper with some bit of water in it, and there's what do you think, Rahula? You see this little bit of water in this dipper, and yes. And you say, well, that's how little there is of say, the recluseship of somebody who tells a deliberate lie, and throws it out, and you see this empty dipper, and you say, that's how it. That's the name. They say that when say the recluseship of somebody who tells a deliberate lie is empty, like this dipper. So he's using these images and something very immediate and striking, and trying to impress on Rahula, on his son, that honesty is just so necessary for a holy life to flourish, for a religious life to really bear fruit. And so that the Buddha using these images, and there's a couple other things, turning it upside down. It was having it empty, and then the Buddha giving a image of elephant, talking about a war elephant. Of course, if you're a little kid, elephants, big elephants would be really interesting, especially if you're. He's a warrior noble, so that image is very, very striking, and then using the image of a mirror. So, what's a mirror used for? It's used for reflecting. And then the Buddha saying the same way, one reflects on one's actions of body, speech, and mind. You reflect on what you're going to do, what you're going to say, what you're going to even think and proliferate about. Before you're doing it, while you're doing it, after you're doing it, using this constant reflection, and recognizing that there are results to actions, and that our actions have consequences. There are results, so that trying to establish this strong foundation in integrity and virtue in his son, and so that's that's the first record of the Buddha teaching his son Rahula. The next kind of record of the Buddha teaching his son Rahula is when Rahula's probably about 18, 19, so that he's still a novice, but 18, 19 is approaching his kind of his adulthood, and he's starting to be fully grown. And and in the discourse, it's the Buddha going on alms round, and Rahula. There's probably a few other monks, but Rahula is along and going on alms round as well. And in the discourse, it's pretty sparse. In that it isn't, there isn't a whole lot of detail, but the Buddha stops and turns to Rahula and says something about the nature of the physical body, and that just the body being problematic, being subject to the sense of its limitation, and it's not being a much of a foundation for a sense of I, me, and mine, and then in the sutta, the Rahula reflects and sort of in the way and the words he says is, how can I go on alms round when I've been admonished by the Blessed One? And so then in the commentary explains that say the thought in Rahula's mind was he's kind of walking along an alms round and looking at the Buddha, and say at that point in time, the Buddha would have been say mid-40s or so, and kind of at the height of his kind of say powers of being a awakened master, and the Buddhas and Rahula's are, well, Buddha's pretty good-looking guy. I'm not so bad myself. I'm his son. So then and then the Buddha admonishing him with that, turning around and getting caught out by the Buddha. But that, so then Rahula goes and spends a day on his own. And when he was sitting in meditation and put the psalm and just said, well, develop mindfulness of breathing. But didn't elucidate it or specify. So that at the end of the day, when Rahula came back, then he asked the Buddha, paid respects to the Buddha, asked the Buddha, how does one develop mindfulness of breathing? And then the Buddha gave a detailed instruction, and not starting with mindfulness of breathing, but starting with the contemplation of the elements, and contemplate on the element of earth, and recognizing that this everything that this nature of the body that's solid, that has a kind of takes up space. This is the earth element, sort of the and those things that are solid: hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin, various internal organs, flesh, sinews, bones. These are all just aspects of earth element, and that is there just isn't. One reflects on it like that. It's not that's not a good landing place for. This is me. This is mine. This is what I am, and the same with the element of water, the things that are fluid, of a fluid nature, the air element, the fire element, and including also the element of space. But the theme that goes through is that perception of not self. And the Buddha goes on to point to the using the elements, bringing the mind to lift those element contemplations up so that the mind becomes resilient and equanimous and stable. because of that, that internalizing of the properties of element. We are just these elements. But the fruit of that, the Buddha says, the fruit of that, when one really contemplates the elements and internalizes, is that that equanimity is well established, so that whatever pleasant or unpleasant contact that one has with the world, there's an unshakability within the mind, within the heart, and that has that sense of stability is unshakability is a fruit worthy of turning attention, giving attention to, developing that as a part of the meditation and contemplation. And then the Buddha encourages them to develop the practice of loving kindness, and in order to overcome ill will, develop the Brahma Viharas, contemplate the developing of compassion, so that can overcome that sense of cruelty, harming. Developing the mudita, the sympathetic joy, as a means of overcoming discontent, developing the equanimity as a Brahmavihara for the overcoming of aversion, developing the asubha practices for overcoming any lust, contemplating impermanence, so that one undermines and relinquishes the kind of attachments to I am, that I am perception. And then the Buddha goes into developing the mindfulness of breathing. This is how one develops mindfulness of breathing, and then goes through the 16 stages or steps of mindfulness of breathing. And the Buddha encourages Rahula in that development of mindfulness of breathing, so that the awareness, mindfulness, a clarity of mind is well established, so that even one's last in-breath and last out-breath are known. They are not unknown. So that sense of there is a unshakability and steadiness of knowing, of clarity, that's well established within the heart. And that was the instruction that the Buddha gave, and to say, Rahula, here is this, say, his son at about 18, 19. It's not what my dad told me. It's different kinds of instructions, different kinds. So that is again a sense of the Buddha as a human being, and his instructions to his own son. And the last sutta that is recorded of the Buddha giving instructions to his son is and it's in the sutta. The Buddha reflecting that the Rahula's faculties for liberation are ripe. They're ripening. They're ripe, and in the sutta they say Rahula is newly ordained. So newly ordained in Buddhist parlance is, in the first couple of years, like you're still a new bhikkhu. Your first 5 years, or you're a new bhikkhu. That's a Navaka bhikkhu. So that Rahula is probably ordained for a couple of years. So he's in his early 20s and has been living and training with the Buddha and the Sangha for since he's 7. So that is the Buddha feels that he's right to be his faculties for liberation are there. So then he invites Rahula to they're in Savatthi, and the Buddha's living at Jeta's Grove, but then at the Jetavana, but he invites Rahula to go with him to spend the day and it's a forest, it's called the Blind Men's Grove, and it's probably a forest near Savatthi that say Buddhist monks, other wanderers would spend time in, and it's a quiet place, probably just outside of the town of Savatthi. And anyway, they go out to the day, and then the Buddha, and it's actually quite a short discourse, although it's because of the repetition. It's fairly, say, extensive. But the Buddha goes through. He uses a sense basis as a foundation, so that, and then just going through all of the senses in terms of the I, and then is it permanent or impermanent? And of course, it's impermanent. Is it that which is impermanent? Is that satisfactory or not satisfactory? That which is impermanent or unsatisfactory, is that worthy of holding to as a self? This is me, this is mine. And of course, but he goes through, say, the I as a sense base, I consciousness, eye contact, and then the Buddha. There's I'm not sure how many places this comes up in the suttas, but it's a bit of a wrinkle in terms of the a little different presentation, where the feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness that depend on the I, are these permanent or impermanent? Are these satisfactory, unsatisfactory? So that, and then it goes through, just all of those aspects of the basis of our perceptual basis and how we perceive the world. So through the eye, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, and just walking Rahula through that, and then going through it again in terms of, this is worthy of disenchantment, this is worthy of relinquishment. And it was with that instruction and that encouragement that the Buddha gave, that Rahula was liberated, so that the Buddha, giving his son, of course, the greatest gift of all, and the gift of the Dhamma, and the Dhamma that liberates. But it's over a long period of time that the Buddha has nourished or has nurtured his son, so that he has the opportunity to experience full liberation. That is also one of the things that the Buddha did with Rahula as well, is that he had Sariputta and put him into Sariputta's care as well, so that he would be instructed and looked after. And again, the sense of the recollection of the Buddha, but I think these human elements are really helpful or important, because sometimes it's easy to either as I said, to mythologize, or for the Buddha to end up being an abstract philosophical principle, and miss the reality that as well as the Buddha being a fully awakened, enlightened being, he was a human being, and that his teaching was for human beings, and that we're, even though 2,500 years have passed, this is still relevant to all of us. It's an opportunity that we have, so that using these themes that the Buddha picks up and gives to his son as a good example, and how to rely on those themes as well, because if it has that power of transformation, and the Buddha giving that attention, that kind of care and compassion, realizing we're extremely blessed to be the recipients of this of this tradition, and the record that we that is still available for us to study, to reflect on, to practice, and to internalize for ourselves. So that's an encouragement for Buddhanussati, recollection of the Buddha. Annamayam Dhammakataya Sadhukarang Dadamasi